Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Poikin, and tonight we have a kind of a special episode here. I am joined by Alex Hills in Wellington, New Zealand, the creator of Candles for Assange, and by Taylor Haight, who joined me the other day, who is the co-founder of Action for Assange. And this is going to be kind of a continuance of, well, shit, I'll let Taylor talk about it.
Yeah, so I am the co-founder of Action for Assange alongside Andrew Smith, and we are kind of going to start up our own vigils similar to Unity 4J. However, we're going to make it a little bit different and focus on sort of the actions that people are actually taking to help Assange's situation as well as Chelsea Manning's situation. And so we have our first guest on tonight, which is Alex Hills. Like Steve said, she is the founder and organizer of Candles for Assange. Now, like Steve was mentioning earlier, this is kind of a different episode. We had a little bit of trouble getting everybody together at one time. Of course, the three of us are on different time zones, so it was kind of tough to get Andrew in earlier. So we're going to, film this on Steve's platform. So Alex, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Can you please talk about what made you want to start Candles for Assange?
Right. So I only got into activism on the ground about a year ago when Class Conscious and Unity 4J were sort of beginning. And Class Conscious were doing a whole bunch of world actions on their sort of more socialist platform. And I sort of helped them out when I was working at Unity 4J with graphics. And I guess I sort of got trained on how they were running global events that way, and tried to help them out from within Unity 4J. And over the year of Unity 4J, we've had petitions in New Zealand for Julian's asylum. We did a birthday vigil last year at New Zealand Parliament because of it, where we put Free Assange candles out on the New Zealand Parliament lawn and made quite a beautiful viral image. And it went really far, and I was really surprised with the ability of someone who's just new to get a platform. And yeah, over the year, I guess I've been working as a bit of an island. I'm a bit of a bull in the china shop when it comes to instructions and doing things in a sort of format and graphic template. And so, I like to kind of work alone and just get on with it. So I guess that's how I've been doing it, supporting Unity 4J from the outside, supporting other groups from the outside. I'm part of a lot of groups online, Operation Free Assange, Londoners Support Julian Assange. I'm helping with the Sydney group now, Support Assange WikiLeaks Coalition. So there's a lot of little groups that I've sort of managed to kind of be an island from and work with. And then it came up to the birthday again, and we had a few successes during the year. And so we decided we would do the same candle display, only we would do it at the US Embassy this time because it's all about the focus on them doing the right thing. And so we invited the world and we made a hashtag, Candles for Assange, just out of the blue. And we said, please, world, join us on Candles for Assange, hold a birthday vigil, hold some candles, let's keep the press flame burning, freedom flame burning. And I was absolutely kind of blown away by the response. In 1 week, I think we had about 30 or so already confirmed. I had contacts and links, and I was beginning to put them on a geocoded map and trying to sort of have a central place where all these little birthday vigils, some of which were big birthday vigils that were planned long ago, and then just sort of signed up so that we could all promote each other's actions and also help people network and find this sort of local support network where, other people who feel like them locally, because a lot of this is always done online and you wouldn't even know if you were living down the road from someone who might be supporting as well and who might be there with you on the streets, So I sort of saw the potential of being a connecting device, really, and now it's sort of going forward. Even after the birthday, I just released a video of all the 62 cities that I could find that had done Candles for Assange vigils or birthday vigils of any kind, and I sort of promoted them all in that. And so, yeah, this is where I am now. That's just happened. And we're kind of running forward now with a couple of campaigns. We've been working on the Defend Media Freedom thing, like a lot of groups have been doing, trying to hijack that hashtag. But also we wanted to do on the ground action. I think that was the one thing that I really wanted Unity4J to coordinate a bit more, was getting people on the ground and networking local people together. That was the thing that I was missing. Particularly, you know, I'm in New Zealand, so far away from everywhere. So it feels like, you know, you really want to be able to find the other people who are also commenting, but you don't know where they're from. So yeah, that's kind of a real brief kind of rundown of what happened. Now we're looking at doing an Eternal Flame campaign on the ground at US embassies, and we've already got a chap in Berlin who's going to be there every Wednesday evening from close of business of the embassy through to midnight. Everyone's doing different time slots, but we're trying to encourage a different continent on every different day of the week to be at a different US embassy, just sitting there on a chair with a candle in a jar, just reminding them that we're watching, and reminding all the other supporters that we are not alone. And the media would like us to think that we are alone, but you know, we really aren't. We really should be a bit more happy about what's going on right now, because I think there's a real sea change of opinion in our area here.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to say,
sorry,
I'm just going to say one thing. Can you give me the charger? Because I think I'm going to run out of battery. I just suddenly realized it's just over there under the violin. Sorry about that.
It's okay. It happens. I have mine plugged in right now just to make sure that doesn't happen to me too. So
I've got little minions helping me.
Got it. So I know you said that you were quite surprised at how this really grew into a huge global cause and a global effort. Can you talk about what was your vision for this? I mean, did you expect it to be as widespread as it was?
You know, I've got some contacts in Toronto. There's lovely Steve McMaster there. I've got some major Assange supporters in almost every Five Eye country. And actually, we had been talking about a plan, a different plan, which I won't talk about now live, because I don't know if it's going to happen yet. If it does happen, it'll probably be around the 6-month anniversary of his arrest, 10:30 a.m. in London on the 11th of October. But yeah, it was bewildering just to see. I imagined that I would get people like Steve, maybe a couple of people in America through Unity4J, a couple of people through MEB and Dale London in London. You know, I imagine that there would be 4 or 5. And so I started drawing manual maps to sort of illustrate where these countries were, and prepared to maybe have more cities. So sort of pointing generally to the country and being really random and just putting a map there, a flag there. And gradually I just found myself, you know, constantly updating maps. And so everyone wanted to be on the map straight away and were begging me to be on there. And I think that's what created the excitement. And so, yeah, after 1 week, it really was a case of having, you know, 20 or 30 people already chomping at the bit wanting to do something. So, and a lot of those, like, let me be clear, I mean, out of those 62 cities, a lot of them are, sorry, a lot of them are just like one person or having a little private party or just doing a candle with a scene in their own town because they didn't find anyone. But I think we'll improve that over time.
I think we will too. And I think what we try to do, Andrew and I, we were in Elyria, Ohio. We went to people. So we had to go to them because we knew that a lot of people didn't know about the case. And so we figured people wouldn't come to us. So it's kind of about, you know, building a good strategy. And I know this is so interesting to me, but you said that you also were working to get Antarctica on board with this. How did that work?
I really did. Well, I had one of the Free Assange key members. She's not really on social media, but she's always at the protests and she writes a lot of letters to newspapers and whatnot. Her husband is a Antarctic researcher. It suddenly just dinged on me that I had a connection to Scott Bass. And we really did actually ask them, and they really did just say no. And I think that if I had been able to be the one asking them, I might have been able to talk them around. But the guy, the Antarctic academic, and he's quite a mild-mannered, quiet gentleman. And he, you know, he immediately, when they said they didn't want to do anything formal, rather than perhaps argue, oh, you know, is there just an individual there that might be able to just do a random, you know, abstract picture of, you know, with a candle or a light, you know. But unfortunately, I wasn't the person to do the negotiation or get the call through, so I had to just rely on someone else. And in the end, they said no firmly, and it was a formal answer. So we could tell them, we could put it out there that they weren't interested, and we really tried. So yeah, it would have been nice to have 7 continents, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. But you still got all 6 inhabited continents, so that was interesting.
Yeah,
and Steve, if you want to jump in here and ask something or make a comment, please feel free.
Oh, sure. No, first of all, real quick, thanks for this. Thanks, Taylor, for setting it up. Thanks, Andrew, for setting it up. Thank you for Alex for coming on to be a part of it. When I first started this show, the whole premise of the podcast, at least, was to have on artists and activists and organizers who were currently doing something, no matter what it was, if it was comedy, if it was protest, if it was journalism, if something to push back against the bullshit that we have to live in every day. And this is a culmination of that, because you guys are activists in your own right that do not know each other until now. And that's kind of what I wanted the show to do in general, between the people that I had on in the audience, is for everybody to kind of fucking realize that we're in this together and we need to do something about it, because nobody else is. So it's cool for me to watch this, and it's cool for me to be a part of it. I understand that Christine Assange, Julian's mom, gave you guys the thumbs up to do these, correct?
She did. Andrew actually was the one that talked to her, and he messaged her, I believe, and she was okay with that. But we wanted to make sure that we had her, blessing, because I think it's important to remember that this really affects people. This is somebody that has a family, parents, and that sort of thing. So we wanted to make sure that we had her blessing as well before we went ahead and went forward with this. But again, we wanted to, and Alex brought this up too, because we were talking about it, these vigils, to really highlight and really emphasize the importance of actually going out there and taking to the streets and actually doing something to bring awareness, because we are censored online and there's only so much we can do online, because we're basically just talking to each other. That's great, and it's great to have that unity there. But again, the actions is what's going to make a difference ultimately.
Definitely.
No, I couldn't agree more. It made me smile too, Alex, when you said that you have people in all of the Five Eyes countries, and that's something really important to think about when we're discussing Julian Assange, is that he has pissed off every single member of that organization, and that when people hear what we recognize as smears and they recognize as passing information about Julian Assange, that there are organizations that exist that have a very vested interest in destroying the character of this person, because putting press freedom on trial isn't going to go well in any of those countries.
No, I mean, I really want to also mention particularly Integrity Initiative in the UK. Now, I mean, I know you guys have got a lot of think tanks and a lot of Correct the Records and God knows what, and God knows where their funding comes from. I mean, we probably know some of it. But Integrity Initiative is probably one of the worst I've heard of. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but basically no one in England is allowed to hear about it, because there is a D notice in operation about reporting on it. And what it is an MI6, as in secret military in UK, funded operation, a think tank, troll army, media organization, with millions of dollars to spend, millions of pounds probably to spend. And what they've been focusing their time on is labeling Jeremy Corbyn, who is probably the greatest hope for Julian Assange at the moment, in terms of British politics, labeling him an anti-Semite, which basically just devalues the term entirely. They've been responsible for smearing Assange continually with ridiculous stories. They've probably been partly responsible for the whole setup in Sweden anyway, given that the British have destroyed all records on that case. So how they can possibly go forward on that case, I don't know, when they've destroyed all evidence related to it. But Integrity Initiative has also been set up to do Russiagate, and it's also been set up to do false reporting on Syria. and anything really to justify war or justify governments that that are more likely to vote in military complex policies, you know, and it's a pretty shocking result. And I don't know if you've seen, but in Britain, that they've found the army have been using target practice on pictures of Jeremy Corbyn. So what we've got is a government-funded organization, military-funded, in order to stop any new party. And you'll be familiar with that from the point of view of, you know, third parties in America trying to get going and trying to get in the debate platform, and just, you know, even being allowed to be voted without feeling guilty for, you know. So you've got a similar situation, probably many more think tanks funded from many more different directions, but that one is one of the most insidious ones, and I think we all need to mention it regularly, because what it shows is Britain and America working together just to justify wars continually, and put anyone who might be a bright spark in politics, who might be for the people, shut them down as soon as possible. And so, yeah, I think it's really important. And a guy called Craig Murray, who is the former ambassador in Britain, who is very much involved in the whole release of the Hillary email, and professes that it came from the DNC himself, being one of the people that handed over the data, he says. So, and I tend to believe him more than I do the mainstream media, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah.
there was a great report that came out by Real Clear Investigates, and this was all over, or not all over, but it was on American media, mainstream media, quite a bit. And basically, this reporter did an excellent job, but he poked holes in the entire Mueller report.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about? Aaron Mattei, yeah, it was or Mattei.
Yes, Aaron, yeah, he won an award actually, didn't he?
He was on both, I believe, Jimmy Dore and Jamarl Thomas's show, talking about that. It is a great article. Throughout the process, throughout Russiagate, Consortium News, the outlet that Elizabeth Voss was co-editor or co-founder of, or not Consortium, sorry, Disobedient Media.
Disobedient Media, and
Consortium News were both hammering the Russiagate investigation, and Elizabeth Voss brought in someone called the Forensicator, who
Adam
wrote down on a tech geek level that I am not anywhere near compatible with, but showing in tandem with the Vault 7 drops that showed how the CIA can come in and place digital footprints, and then the Forensicator came in and it showed exactly when and where that happened and timestamped all these remarkable. Both Ray McGovern and John Kiriakou and Bill Benny as well.
And the veterans for what was it? Sanity. Veterans for Sanity did work on it.
Absolutely, that's Bill Benny and Ray McGovern and John Kiriakou and a handful of really other wonderful people. But Bill Benny has gone anywhere that will take him, really, to explain, hey, look, I'm the original NSA code breaker writer guy. I know how this works. This was a data transfer. It was not a hack. You motherfuckers, why aren't you paying attention? You know, and of course we know that there's a narrative. We know that there's several underlying avenues that come into play here to destroy both press freedom and the character of Julian Assange. So, and Donald Trump, essentially, for taking throne away.
I sometimes wonder whether it really was ever about Donald Trump. I mean, if you believe that both parties are pretty much controlled by the same beast anyway, it's all just a puppet show, isn't it? I actually beginning to wonder, given how the resultant benefits they've had from the Russiagate lies, it seemed like it was really all about only making WikiLeaks out to be a Russian agent without evidence. I mean, that seems to be what the achieved goal has been, you know, from their disinformation. I don't think it was ever to impeach Trump. I don't think they had any interest.
Yeah, he even said that his source was not the Russian government or a state actor, and I'm going to trust his word over the mainstream media that has consistently lied about this. And also with that report, they have no, in Aaron Matei's report, they have no evidence or any sort of like digital trace of that information or the DNC emails going from the DNC to WikiLeaks. There's no any evidence of that. So for them to make a determination that it was Russia is really bold and really irresponsible. And the language they use in the report is also like, oh, it appears, or just very vague language that they're using to say that Russia was behind all of this. But hopefully, because Robert Mueller will be testifying on Wednesday next week, and hopefully we'll learn some more. I doubt it, because of course
going to read the report out. I hear he's only going to read the report out. Isn't he just going to read it verbatim from beginning to end? Isn't that the only thing he'll ever do? I thought he'd stated. Well, maybe that's changed now.
We're going to be hearing testimony from a guy who said Saddam had weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, who we just recently found out whose FBI department gave a deal to Jeffrey Epstein, who was told to hold off on Jeffrey Epstein because, according to Alex Acosta, he, quote, belonged to intelligence, unquote. Why would Robert Mueller come in and all of a sudden say, oh, that narrative that I worked so hard to push for 3 years, that WikiLeaks is a bad actor in this scenario? Why would he come in and now suddenly say, wait a minute, I changed my mind?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I don't see that happening.
It looked really stupid. But also, as well as weapons of mass destruction, I believe it was Mueller's FBI that went to a plane load of FBI agents who went to Iceland. And the Icelandic government MP is on record multiple times in the last few years saying that just before what happened in Sweden, he had to throw a plane load of FBI agents out of Iceland for doing exactly the same thing, trying to set him up with a honey trap there. And they immediately saw it and threw them out in disgrace. And months later, I believe it was months later, they were in Sweden doing the same thing. So, he's got a lot of blood on his hands, really, he has. And he can't really backtrack now. I think that's, that's the thing. If you use 2 years of lies and anonymous sources, which aren't turning out to be true, it's very hard to backtrack from that position, isn't it? He'd lose a lot of face.
Right, but for some reason, a lot of many American people forget his history. They forget, and he has been championed by many people, especially the Democratic Party, as being this hero who is going to expose Trump. So unfortunately, what you're saying is correct. Unfortunately, many people have a short-term memory and are kind of discounting that. And it just, it's a real symptom and testament to how partisan politics works in the United States.
Well, it's not even partisan politics. Again, looking at what, like Alex said, when you look back, take a step back and remember the two parties exist to provide cover for the fact that they serve the same masters. You've got the Obama administration, who almost prosecuted or almost went after Julian Assange, came up with what they called the New York Times problem, which is what we saw happen when the Trump administration released what they were charging Julian Assange with. And everyone went, holy shit, this applies to me too.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know about the ABC in Australia. Do you know about the ABC rates in Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah, so ABC is the national broadcaster. They are meant to be, tax paid, independent, supposedly, not independent, but, they're meant to not be the MSM. They're meant to be their own public broadcaster. And so the police in Australia have permission to not only confiscate materials, confiscate their sources, their documents in their office, but they also have the power to change them. They have the power to amend the documents and change the actual information in the evidence. It seems beyond belief that could be even acceptable to anyone. It's strange, and I think part of it is Australian media is probably one of the most highly propagandized media outlets in the world. I mean, not only just because of Murdoch, but also because, there's a real disinformation thing going on about Aboriginal treatment in Australia, and a lot of people realise, but a lot of people trust their media and don't realise quite what's going on in the communities in Northern Territory and what's happening to, Indigenous people there. It's just appalling, and I think that's part of the whole reason why I find Australian media is one of the most full of disinformation anyway, that I've seen. I know America's got it too, but at least you've got options. There's not very many other options in Australia other than YouTube, people, smaller people, I guess.
The thing about that, Alex, is that we've got a lot of what appear to be options, but there are 6 companies that own 90 to 95% of all of our media. If it's coming from Vox, or if it's coming from Vice, or if it's coming from Breitbart, or if it's coming from Tucker Carlson's whatever, The Blaze or whatever, there's still the same exact 6 fingers, are in that organization. So we have the illusion of choice, as George Carlin used to put it. But this show right here is on the fringes of independent media, because I'm doing this shit on my dime when I have time for it. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm not beholden to anyone. I do it when I can. Like Jimmy Dore owns his show now, does his show out of his garage that he owns. He's an independent channel. I'm pretty sure Nico House, he's a co-founder of a media company, but he's doing that shit on his dime.
Yeah.
And it works. It works because they're funded by their viewers and funded by the people versus corporations and big companies. And we talked about this on the show the other day too, Steve. The problem is that because there's only like 6 media companies, there's of course going to be a certain spin on the stories, and certain things are going to be left out of the news that make these companies look bad. So the very people that are supposed to be holding them to account are essentially owned by them, so that it is a problem. But you're right, it does give the illusion that there is a choice. But really, the hope we have, I believe, is probably YouTube. And if you look at the numbers, that's where everybody is starting to go to find their news, because they're starting to lose trust in the mainstream media and cable news.
Well, I think most people use a litmus test. I mean, most people I know use a litmus test of Russiagate in reviewing any journalist, any person who's talking about politics. I mean, you just have to look at their position on Russiagate to understand whether they're worth watching ever again or not. It's quite a good one, because it really separates the crap, doesn't it, from the good stuff.
There's a lot. I mean, it depends on what period of American history you're looking at, or when you became distrustful of the official narrative, I guess. But yeah, if you're looking at a news source, then Russiagate is a perfect example of what you can look to, or whatever false flag they're trying to pull in Iran. That's a good one.
Venezuela. Yeah.
Whatever their opinion on Julian Assange is, that's generally a good one. You can, I don't know, sometimes it's hard to tell, man. I watched a couple of different shows where I'm like, okay, well, this seems reasonable, and then it veers off into knitted hat territory.
Are you talking about like independent in YouTube?
Yeah,
you're gonna find that, sure.
Yeah, it's fucking frustrating. I'll say is that the Rational National is like that. The Canadian guy who tries to sound like reasonable or left wing until he has to defend the status quo at every turn, and it's just and he voluntarily does that. And I wonder, and maybe you guys can help me answer this. I wonder how much of that is self-censorship. How much of that is due to a culture of being shouted down your entire existence for speaking outside of the narrative?
Well, I think it's incredibly hard to speak positively about Trump. Not that I want to, but do you know what I mean? When you want to defend something like his claim that he was spied upon, well, he was. It really annoys me that people are forced to toe a line because it's just not socially acceptable to defend someone because of facts. You know, you have to put the facts aside because we can't let anything, you know, hurt our partisan person. You know, it's a real shame. And I really appreciate those media companies that are not overly invested in either way, and, you know, at least look at the whole picture and call out things that are lies when they are lies. If someone is being persecuted or witch hunted, you know, I think it's fair to say and defend that from happening. It's not right. Doesn't mean that I support Trump, but unfortunately there's a stigma, isn't there? You know,
I'm really glad
you're not allowed to do anything that says anything positive, even if it's true.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because Rachel Maddow, who was obviously one of the, I don't know if you know, but she is a late night show host, in the US on MSNBC. And she was one of the people who really pushed the Russiagate conspiracy consistently, very in-depth reports each night. And basically, she had to come out in defense of Julian Assange when we learned that he was charged with 7 additional espionage charges. She eventually had to go to his defense, realizing that that implicates her as well. So what she did to her audience, she said, I know what you guys are thinking. You're very surprised, like, oh, how could Rachel be defending the WikiLeaks guy? So she even had to like kind of give them like a heads up or try to like baby them, because she knew that her audience does not like Assange because they have this belief that he helped Trump win the election. And so she had to sort of apologize for defending him. So that's kind of an example of what you were saying, if that makes sense. It was a weird thing. I encourage you to watch the clip.
The American version of The Guardian, because wasn't she anti-war, anti the Iraq War originally, and that she got her audience because of that position. You know, so she came from the left and supposedly was anti-war, but now it's quite clear that that's not the case anymore, isn't it? And I think she's just saving her own bacon in that instance, because obviously she saw the precedent. You know, So I guess that's what's going on there. But yeah, Rachel Maddow for me is like Guardian. It's like the sheep in wolf's clothing. You know, the Guardian was consistently the go-to paper in UK for anyone who was anti-war, left-wing, fighting establishment, actually, because all the other papers in UK were the opposite. Now, they got that reputation. They worked with it. They got a fantastic audience of left-wing, revolutionary people who were keen on progressive movement, and then they usurped it. And it seems to be a common pattern, with left-wing parties. They get usurped by a sort of different, and so we've lost our balance of left and right, because we've got these sheep in wolf clothing in the Democrats, and we've got these sheep in wolf clothing in the Guardian. And Rachel Maddow, I think she's just another example of that. Very dangerous, much more dangerous than someone, who hadn't done that all along, who hadn't developed a reputation for holding power to account, and then has suddenly changed. Yeah, I guess Young Turks are a little bit like that, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. They I know, Steve, you could probably speak to this better than I can. Go ahead.
So I've been familiar with Cenk Uygur for over a decade. I remember him when Young Turks was just starting out, and he would go to the Daily Kos to like beg for clicks on his little website and shit like that, while at the same time writing these like.
Oh, his writings are horrible. You have to, if you look at stuff from years ago.
Aryan, like ANCAP kind of shit. And fast forward a number of years, Cenk found a great way to grift progressives, because for years, flat out, progressives in the United States and people on the left have had nowhere to go. They've been boxed in by this Democratic Party that's been able to say, well, they're bad too. They're even worse. What are you going to do? Vote for that guy? That's their shit. That's their whole fucking talking point. What are you going to do? Vote for that schmuck? Vote for this schmuck. Because that schmuck's a really, really bad schmuck. Like, that's their whole gig. So the left has nowhere to go, and they have nowhere to go for media. Like, a lot of people, 9/11 woke them up, and they were like, wait a minute. I can't criticize my government anymore. I can't talk about anti-war anymore. I can't do this. Is why Julian Assange is so goddamn important. This is
Mm,
why the collateral murder video is so important. You know,
mm,
we were in this so highly propagandized state. We passed the Patriot Act. We opened up these, you know, 400 different intelligence agencies. We expanded domestic surveillance on a level that George Orwell hadn't conceived of because he couldn't picture the tech, you know. Uh, so Cenk found this niche where he could grift the left, who wanted hope, who wanted a counter narrative. And the Young Turks have always gone away from the mainstream media talking points mostly, but they've always circled back to support the Democratic establishment when they've needed the most. And in 2017, they took $20 million from Hillary Clinton bundler and mega donor Jeffrey Katzenberg.
mm.
That right about the time where they were pushing Russiagate 24/7, they were
Yeah.
having people like Neera Tanden, they were pushing Jimmy Dore and Ron Placone and Graham Elwood out of the main show. It was
Mm,
45 minutes of Trump and 15 minutes of look what happened to this actor or some shit.
yeah.
Like, they're now where mainstream media on YouTube is. That's what they are, and they've lost a good chunk of their progressive base, but they picked up a lot of people who are brand new to this newer form of media, or newly recognized as legitimate form of media ish.
Mm,
Independent media shows on YouTube, shit like that, gaining more traction. They let Ben Shapiro's ass on the BBC, you know. Like, granted, he shat his diaper and fucking cried on camera in front of like a 436-year-old Tory, but that's an entirely different story. The point I'm trying to make is you're absolutely right when you call out the Young Turks for that. They are an establishment media outlet at this point. They're just on YouTube.
yeah.
They've
But dangerous because again, the you know, the wolf in sheep's clothing. It makes it much more dangerous because people are so put aside their skepticism and just believe. And you know, because people like John Pilger worked for the Guardian once, you know, so people just believe. But they sacked him long ago because and a whole bunch of other anti-war people there because you know, they just weren't driving the right narrative. And I'm sure it's the same for Sync. Yeah, I'd heard about, was it Fusion GPS funding? I thought as well. Yeah, I woke. I probably partly woke during the 9/11, but I didn't do much about it. I've always been pretty outraged about politics. I probably woke in the Bernie days. And the reason it really affected me and pissed me off is because I was so delighted to see all these young people getting in with interested in politics because of what Bernie was saying. I got really behind it all and really pulled into it all. And I watched it just all fall apart. And so I was really heavily in pretty much every Facebook group to do with Bernie. And what I noticed is that in New Zealand, my comments on the election were being completely shut down and zero likes, whereas anything that I did was normal day-to-day kind of posts was 50-60 likes, and I couldn't understand it. I just couldn't believe people were trying to tell me, oh, people aren't interested in politics, and or you know, people have opted not to see that or whatever. I knew it was more than that. I knew it was censorship, and all the American friends were telling me, no, you're just being paranoid. But now I think everyone would agree that we're all being shadow banned. It's not like it's not there on your timeline. It's just it's not being able to be looked at, and you're always going to be preaching to the converted. The only people who are ever going to see your posts are going to be, you know, Unity4J and completely stoic Assange supporters or Bernie supporters. You know, they're the only people who are going to ever see anything you post because it's not savory for anyone outside of that group.
Exactly. And that's why we created Action for Assange, was to get the message exposed to people who otherwise would not be exposed to it online or because we're censored. But that's why we emphasize the importance of actually, you know, doing things and spreading the message, even if it's not, you know, the easiest thing to always do. And I know you agree because you said you really emphasize and find it important to actually do things. And on the topic of that too, I do want to ask you, where do you see Candles for Assange going looking forward?
Well, I will love to keep on organizing global action, so that if there's anything that ever needs to be synchronized between countries, or something that's an important time mark, or something that people want to connect with local people just to do something local, people want to map events on. I'm going to try and get that map working with dates and time zones so that you can really see it roll out and you can filter it and look at certain days of activities. And I just want to keep on putting stuff in there. I don't mind doing that myself. It's pretty easy now. It's set up. So yeah, I saw that as a great way to promote and share amongst wide global countries an idea that's coming out of any Assange group. And it doesn't have to be a Candles idea. It could be another idea. I mean, as I said, we've got the eternal flame. Once we've filled up US embassies for the full week and we have someone always sitting in the evening outside an embassy or something like that, then I think we'll start the UK ones. And I think the more we've got in public areas, like for instance in Auckland, they do it a lot here for Free Assange NZ. They do a lot of standing outside the US and the UK consulate in Auckland, but it's in an area, and same for Wellington, it's in an area where you don't get any pass-by traffic. And what I really want as part of that action is for these people to be the sort of people in main town centres with an embassy and sitting on a chair, and so that they can engage with passers-by, because I think those conversations that we have with normal people as they walk by are the most strong developers of this movement. And I don't mind if it's not Candles for Assange that succeeds. I'll do what I can with it. I mean, I guess part of the problem is I'm one person with no funding, and I've always directed funding to WikiLeaks like Unity4J did. I always like to try and not look like I'm trying to grift money out of the situation. But of course it gets financially really tough, doesn't it? Because, you know, I'm printing and I'm buying candles and, you know, there are needs, and it's a bit of a tricky one. Like, how do we mobilize our people on the ground if we've got no funding and we've got no proper organizations that are helping us? You know, that's probably a barrier that I've got to get through. But if I can do that, maybe I could have one person working away on the map and constantly putting information in and pushing out events, you know, event posts from my Candles for Assange. So I just want to use the platform for good, however I can. And I don't mind if it doesn't roll out in the same method it has been in the last couple of weeks. You know, all things start small, and I think that's what we've got to remember. It's more about us feeling comfortable about speaking the truth, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I know,
and knowing that there are others, there are others that are feeling really strong about it too.
Yeah. Now, I know you said that you really appreciate being able to engage with those in the public. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, well, we've done some really great public engagement things. I mean, even when we were just setting up Candles at the Parliament, that got quite a few passers-by asking questions and who's Assange and blah, blah, blah. So those sort of actions, art, music, they bring in a whole load more people than you'd imagine. Then we've been doing Victoria University Wellington is the main uni in Victoria in Wellington, and my mate's there, the guy that does the music with me. So sometimes I go up there and meet him at lunchtime, and we have like an hour busk with a sign, and then if anyone comes over to us, we stop between songs and we chat to them and tell them about the story and why it's important. And I was actually horrified by how few people on campus, these young 17, 18-year-olds all up at uni on the campus there, they didn't know of Assange. I mean, maybe the school newspaper knew about them and a couple of people, but really no one had ever heard of them. It's like a whole decade has gone past since the first action. So, you know, this old supporters are getting old and tired, and we really need to refresh and get some new blood in. So that's another one. And by far the most amazing and not expected to be amazing action that we did that got like thousands of people looking at us was we did a marching band through town. So I was on the violin walking, which I think no one's ever seen, and a walking band.
That's awesome.
I was in the violin walking behind a banjo and a guitarist and a woman with a sign. And we just went through complete peak lunchtime city and walked from one end of the city to the other to the Parliament and then off to the UK High Commission. And honestly, I think thousands of people saw us do that. It was incredible. And we got a lot of smiles. We got some funny looks. It didn't matter. I think just it was charming to some people that people would go to that kind of length to try and get some word out. It shows you how much we're having to work because of what the media is doing to, well, what the media is not
how bad of a job they're doing. Right. Now,
Yeah.
I could tell through your work, and we've spoken about this before too, is the importance of the arts mixed with activism.
Well, that's just me because I've got a skill of violin, and
But it grabs people's
my
attention.
mate is an amazing artist. Yeah, and so I'm just using. I think, like Elizabeth Lee Voss said once, whatever you're good at, it doesn't matter. It could be crochet. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you're good at, express. Use it for good, you know, because if you're good at something, then you can engage new people who are interested in crochet, and they can suddenly go, oh, wow, that's an important issue.
That's a great point.
It's real simple, I think, that kind of thing. So whatever you're good at, for me, it was violin. And for me, I saw what Alex Taylor, I don't know if you know Alex Taylor in London. He's a violinist that's been doing a lot of work for Assange. He's actually Australian. And he went outside the Ecuadorian embassy Australia Day in 2018. So that's 26th of January, I think. Gosh.
I think it is.
He went outside Ecuadorian embassy and he played Waltzing Matilda, which is kind of a political song anyway, on his violin. He got dragged off the streets by the armed task force. It got into MSM. He was all over the media because it was so ridiculous that a chap playing violin on his own on the pavement would be taken away by the armed task force. So it made mainstream, and I thought, gosh, wow, if he can do that just by playing violin on the streets, well, maybe I can use what I can do here as well. And I happen to have my Maori Londoner friend, Timothy, who is an amazing songwriter, and he comes up with all the lyrics and I tweak them, and then I come up with the jamming on top, and we're a great team. We can just come up with songs left, right, and center. So
now, did you publish your video
really
yet?
helped me. Having him and being a sort of two-person protest action that can do a lot, even just playing music and not saying anything.
Did you publish your video yet? Because I watched it, I listened to it, and very clever take on the words there. So if that was his work and your work, it was great because I thought it was very clever and catchy.
No, the song that you heard on the video, I don't know. Are you talking about the Julian Assange song that New Zealand's had out for a while?
You sent me the video.
About the video that I made last night.
The one you made last night.
The one I made last night. No, I better give proper credit. That's a group in Adelaide. They rewrote the words. When I asked people to sing Happy Birthday Stevie Wonder, they spent a week writing a new song, and they came up with it and did it on Rundle Mall in Adelaide. And so on my video, I've put a note on that on the description because I really wanted to credit them. And also there was an a cappella from Sydney, who is the sister of Helen Rose, the sister of Ian Rose, who runs Sydney Support Assange WikiLeaks Coalition, which is huge. I think it's about 11,000 people online. So that's a really good group to connect with. And in fact, was one of the first ones I did for this candles thing. And it really helped me connect through to him. So yeah, those are the two artists on the video. Also, you might hear Steve McMaster from Canada singing in the middle on a bit of a solo male voice. So yeah, there's three people in there. Unfortunately, because of the torrential rain in Wellington, we could not get the violin out. It was so ridiculous. And in the end, doing all the candles and everything else, we just stuck with that. And I think our videos of us singing Happy Birthday got lost as well. They didn't come out in the live feed. So sadly, I was the only one probably that didn't do the song. But yes, we've had a couple of really, really great songs with Timothy Wagner, and we put it out. We always do it at the campus and when we're doing marching through town because it's quite a catchy reggae Julian Assange song.
That's awesome. That is. I'm checking out the chat. What was I gonna say? I play strings, Alex, so I know about the weather. Yeah, pretty much anything with strings, although I prefer mandolin as my string voice. Yeah.
Mandolin's tuned the same way as a violin.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So if I do this, it's almost like it sounds like a mandolin, almost.
Yeah, we call that cabin style. violin.
Kevin style.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Shit. I had it and I lost it.
Ah,
Oh, I was
yeah.
gonna
Well,
say,
so I
if
think that
anybody's in the
Unity 4J
chat, if
had been thinking about doing a vigil with artists and focusing more on. I think Kathy Vogan had been talking about it. I don't know if you know her. She's
I
an
do not.
Australian-based supporter. Yeah. So I think that your idea here, I think, is going to be really great because showcasing people who've got some kind of skill to bring to the parties is where it's at, because that's where you really bring in new people, because people are interested in music and artistic expressions. Candles are beautiful, displays. I don't know if you've seen the Berlin guy. He did sculptures in a sort of a rogue bronze sculpture of chairs with Snowden, Manning, and Assange standing on them.
Yeah.
And there's an empty chair, and you can stand on the empty chair and see the world from their perspective. Yeah. So he's the main Berlin organizer. He's also the guy that's going to be sitting outside the US embassy there, and he's already got a second person joining him. So maybe we'll have 6 or 8 seats next week. Who knows? It's going to look very powerful, I think, when there's people sitting on chairs with candles, staring at the US embassy quietly, just looking at them. I think it's going to start making people question what's going on. Hopefully.
Absolutely. And I definitely think it's important too to also target places with a symbolic meaning. Andrew and I often talk about that a lot, is not only going to the people, but also going to places of significance is really important point.
Like war memorials and things that are to do with war, probably. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know that a lot of the candles people, there was someone in Cornwall, a couple of I didn't get photos from, but there were a couple of people in Cornwall and Estonia. I think they just went to their local war memorial because someone had suggested that on Candle's site, and it seemed like a good idea just to have a little ceremony, especially for the people who were just going to be 1 or 2 people. Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to have to not talk for too much longer because my kids are doing all my holiday packing at the moment as we talk.
Okay.
Okay.
But I mean, a little bit longer if you need to ask more questions.
Well, so
let
how?
me hop in
Go
real
ahead,
quick,
Steve.
because what I would suggest to pretty much anyone and everyone that wants to do this is to figure out who near you already does some sort of organizing or grassroots activism and ask them to host a class on effective low or no fund organizing. And more often than not, anyone who's involved in activism or organizing is going to have an idea of what works and what doesn't, and would like to talk at length about it, so it, like, even if it, even and especially if, okay, we'll get our friends to come to your thing, show us what you guys do that's effective, and then when we're doing our thing, maybe you can come and support us too, and you can build your own your at least your own education and information network about Julian Assange that way, and you can get tips on how to do successful organizing.
Yeah. No, it'd be great. And I think everyone's got something different to give, and everyone's got a different city that they have to address, different problems, different rules about protests. I mean, I think in Germany, you have to ask permission. It's not often denied unless it's something really awkward, but you have to ask permission to do anything. I mean, the Berlin guy had to ask permission to get a chair and put it in there. It all had to be done by the books. And then some other countries are very casual. I mean, we used to tell the police here before we did a protest. We don't even bother now. They just send someone anyway. They seem to know. And then, like I was saying before, we are all telling everyone globally to go to the US embassy. But for some people, that's a real waste of time because no one sees you. And, maybe a couple of staff might when they're in and out, but it's frustratingly not useful. So we have to listen to all the local area information. And I think if the UK or the US embassy or whatever the focus point of that protest is not suitable there, media companies are a good place to go. I don't know if you saw one of the slides of my video. There's a billboard sitting outside ABC headquarters in Australia, in Melbourne, or yeah, and maybe in Melbourne, yeah. And so you maybe you don't want to antagonize them too much and be too ridiculous, but I think having a group of people outside informing people, and then having one or two people go up and talk to the media staff at the reception quietly and respectfully, but sort of asking questions. Just make them try and come up with a reason why they're not supporting their own industry, which is literally being attacked. So it seems bizarre. I mean, I don't know if you heard, but last week I was trying to get New Zealand media to cover this, and I rang up RNZ, and I'd got through to the news desk. So this was already the PA to the journalist, and she asked me to spell Assange, and I kind of gasped. And then minutes later, I got through to the journalist, and I started talking about what we were doing and why they hadn't picked up our press release. And wasn't it a bit embarrassing that New Zealand was kind of missing out on this feel-good story? It's a bit embarrassing, isn't it, when the rest of the world is reporting it in independent media? And then I sort of got wind that she was never going to report anything anyway. She was getting tired of me already, and probably I was being abrasive. And I said, look, is there some kind of D notice in operation under Assange reporting? Is that why we never have our protests covered? Is that what's going on? And she went, what's a D notice? And I just couldn't even believe it, because I know that most average people down on the street don't know what it is. But if you're a journalist in the news office of our major New Zealand media company, state-funded media company, and you don't even know what a D notice is, and for the audience, that is a mechanism in Britain that was used for good reasons originally, in that you didn't want to have court cases where people's names were plastered all over the media. So they came up with a D notice in order to start controlling certain words and certain discussions on media because of genuine court reasons why it would not be a good idea for that person. Now they're applying it to anything that's affecting national security, and we know what that means. That basically means anyone who's talking about war, anyone who's dissenting politically, anyone who's got a different opinion from the status quo.
Right, it's a tactic they use, and they always say it's going to jeopardize national security. It's a tactic,
so
and
it's never. Is basically when you block out a story in British press, and it tends to go around the world, and all the Commonwealth definitely obey. And so, for her not to know that and be a journalist, I'm going to assume I was through to someone who was a journalist. She sounded like she was a reporter, For me to get that far through into the middle of a media company and them to not know Assange's name, how to spell it, or a D notice, I just really had a little private scream in my brain. It's just like,
yeah, understandably. So Alex, before you head out, can you please let everybody know where they can find you on Twitter and your website, etc.?
Yeah. So I'm normally Greenweaver Arch on Twitter, and that's my main account. But since Candles Assange took off, I thought I better create a new Twitter. So that one's called Candles #4 Assange for Twitter. Then I've got a Facebook group of the same name, #CandlesForAssange. And I've also got a YouTube channel, Alex Hills. And I've just uploaded that 62 sing-along 62 city video, which is.
Can you repeat that again? Because I think you cut out a little bit.
Oh, sorry. So which so Candles for Assange. YouTube, yeah. So my YouTube is Alex Hills, and you can see a picture of me playing violin in a red dress on the profile picture. It's not a big channel. I think it's like 110 subscribers. I've not really been pushing it, but now. Probably more things will come out there. I might even create a YouTube channel just for candles. And we've got the candlesforassange.com now. And I've popped the map that used to be on my own work website, because I'm an architect. So I had it on my Greenweaver architecture website. But I managed to get it all off and put it on candlesforassange.com and buy the domain name. So that is there. There's a whole lot of information there. I'm going to put loads of videos from all around the world there. There's our original press release. There's our new Eternal Flame campaign. And there's the map. So I'm very happy to just keep on putting events in there and sharing it. And then people can always follow those links to the contacts that they need in various countries. And Ian Rose from Support Assange WikiLeaks Coalition, he said he might be able to throw our group a little bit of money potentially to keep that running, it's possible that we might get some funding from a bigger group. I'm hoping so, because really it's just me and Greg and a few handful of people around New Zealand, very thinly spread, and so it's very hard to get big actions on the ground. Also, I've been put in touch with John Shipton, and we messaged back and forth for the first time yesterday, which was really lovely. And he's going to put me in touch with some people in New Zealand, and I'm hoping that will get some help from some more supportive groups, you know, because I feel like a novice still. I've only been doing it a year, and I still feel very green in terms of my knowledge of how to do these things. And I kind of wished originally we tried to put our asylum petition on Action Station in New Zealand, a petition site, and they refused to do it because they wanted us to add something about Sweden in there, and we refused, so we had to go to it seems like there's no big organizations here will help us. I've gone to the anti-war people. They don't seem interested. They just don't seem to connect the two issues of anti-war and transparency in government. They completely miss it. So I wonder, sometimes it makes me wonder who these people are that are organizing these protests.
Yeah, it does, really.
I've had very little luck with getting big groups to help me. So I really am just like one or two people, plus these lovely organizers around the world who seem to be happy to bend over backwards to do anything as a collective group. And I think that power of doing something collectively, even though the numbers are small in many, many places, it just brings everyone a lot more hope. And that's what we all need, isn't it?
That's right. Steve, feel free to jump in, of course. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Alex? I know you gotta head out.
I can't think of anything. Really, it's just pushing that message on social media, getting people to push, not just posting things on their timeline, because I think we're all suffering from algorithm problems and censorship issues, and they're not obvious. So people are posting things on timeline and it's not doing anything. I think the real power is to get yourself connected in some groups and pages and post in those pages rather than just sharing it on your own page. The other thing I've noticed that Facebook has done that's really annoying is they're taking out the text out of your posts. So when someone shares a post that you've put a lot of work into the information before the link, and you might even be saying, God, this crappy article, look at this. Unfortunately, Facebook is only sharing the link, so that's really kind of disabling the whole message as it goes along. So those are two things that I think people should watch out for. We really need to get around the censorship. And I don't know if you know, but Unity4J has just been shut down on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah, so we all need to step up and write messages of support, write to Twitter support, anything you can do. And we need to do that even if it's someone we don't like. We really need to do that every time. And of course, Unity4J, I have enormous respect for what they've achieved. It's amazing. So I will always back them up if they're censored. And it really appalls me because I know that they run their account really, really carefully, because I've had videos where I've not been careful on copyright and used a bit of Rupley or whatever, and they've been very careful not to put that on their channel. So I can't imagine that they've done anything to cause this other than participating in the defend media freedom.
I agree. I think that's perhaps where this is stemming from. I think so too, unfortunately.
Yeah. Maybe they just went too hard.
Right.
We have to support them. We have to keep on putting messages out to Twitter and letting them know it's unacceptable.
Nothing says you live in a free country by getting removed from speaking on social media by posting about defending media freedom.
Yeah.
That's the fucking cartoon that we live in.
I think Christchurch has been used as a way to censor as well. Christchurch has been used as a massive censoring tool, and they pretend that they're censoring hate, but what they're doing is they're shutting down anyone with dissent, anyone. And I don't think it's just an algorithm error either.
There's no such thing as a simple algorithm error when 850 pro-Palestinian channels get booted, and legitimate organizations that present news that isn't in line with the narrative get booted, but they always hold up one, clearly disgusting human being as the sacrifice of, oh, look
Yeah.
who we got. Go back to sleep now. We got the bad guy. We got him. Here's the beast's head. Okay, everybody see the beast's head. We got to go back to sleep. We got this. It's what they do.
Mm.
Alex, I know you have to go. Taylor, I was going to throw it to the chat for a little bit for anyone that's left if they had a couple of questions. I don't know how long you've got to
Yeah,
stay.
if anyone wanted to ask me questions before I go, I'm happy to answer them. I probably need to go in about 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of confirmation that Facebook is the devil, and yeah, it's I don't know what happened today. Twitter was down for a bit. Some people went apeshit over it. Some people were like, "Oh no, it's just a glitch. Don't worry about it." And I know they're trotting out a new algorithm in a couple of days, and that algorithm is supposed to recognize religious hate speech, and then automatically tag the accounts that are using whatever the algorithm determines as anti-religious hate speech. I don't know. It doesn't seem legitimate. I would like to agree with Alex real quick about just how bullshit it is that Unity4J was silenced. There are a lot of people that have participated and co-created that vigil that have been on this show. Recently had Elizabeth Voss and John Kiriakou on, and yeah, for that, for their incredibly benign, ridiculously patient Twitter account to be suspended rings of shenanigans.
Right, I agree, and especially because it happens, and then that's when this Twitter went down shortly after the account was suspended, and then once Twitter went back up again, the account is still suspended, and I think it is right now till this day. And there's been a lot of people who have been, trying to contact Twitter to make a complaint about this, and we're actually going to be having Christy Doff on later tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern time. She will be on to talk about all of that because she is part of the administration or admin team for Unity4J, and I believe that she does run that Twitter account, so she'll be able to talk about how she talk more in depth about the details regarding that. I'm not sure if they were ever given an email explanation as to why, but again, I heard
they weren't.
They weren't.
Nothing.
Okay, they were not.
No. And I mean, a similar thing happened 2 weeks ago with Philip Adams, who is the chap who brought in that huge petition. It's up to 160,000 almost, I think. And the day, it was the second that he posted a tweet which said, "We've just hit 150,000," and literally shut down. Now, he is the politest gentleman in the world. Like, he's never, ever been rude or even taken on a fight. To support someone in that way. He just would not get involved in that kind of rubbish, and there's no justification. Now he's back on again, as are Class Conscious, who were also cut down. They've been doing their own global stuff. The reasons given are absolute sham. They're nothing to do with reality, and we know that there's no Twitter rules being broken. I think I've probably broken more Twitter rules by being rude to trolls than it just angers me that I've never been banned. I think I've been I had to give my phone number once when I was in the middle of our petition. I was shut out, and then I had to give my phone number in order to carry on with Twitter. I don't know if you guys have found that. There wasn't a way to carry on without giving my number, basically. And I thought it was censorship, but it might have just been that.
Yeah, and actually somebody and of course it was probably just a troll. It was dumb, but they were posted something on Twitter saying that they hoped that Assange died in a helicopter crash, something really stupid. And I, showed it to someone, And I think I posted it and put a comment with it. And one of the Assange supporters reported it to Twitter, and that was not a violation of Twitter rules. So it's interesting that certain standards are set for some people while others are not held to the same standard.
Well, I never understand the note that you get from Twitter when you report someone, because I've reported a troll before, or two, hens christened, and people have been really, really rude or hateful. I think there was someone with a candle video, which was actually like an exploding thing, and it was in the Middle East, like just really sick things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've reported people for reasons which I've just been pissed off, and I don't think that they really probably deserved a report, but I've just been really pissed off with their attitude, and actually probably they never even broke a Twitter rule. I have done that 1 or 2 times when I've been really outraged and I've just reported and blocked and blah. And I get back something saying this Twitter user was found to break the Twitter rules, and it never says whether they had any problem, but it always tells me, yes, they broke the Twitter ruls.
They should have to
I seem to get an auto message. What is that about? Because clearly they haven't been blocked, and I'm sure they wouldn't be on the basis of that. I was just angry. I've only done that a couple of times, but I've noticed that whether or not it's a valid reason, I still get the same message back, which seems to suggest that they did break the Twitter rules, which, I don't know. It just seems to be a sham auto letter response that has nothing to do with anything that they're doing, in my opinion. They've probably got accounts that they will block and probably accounts that they won't. I have no idea.
Course.
Yeah. No, I'm still quite new to Twitter. I actually opened it to complain about hotels.com years ago. And I made it my business, Greenweaver Arch. I made it my business name, and I had it at a conference a couple of times and said something, and then never used it. And I only opened it up again like a year ago to properly use it. So, well, I guess we all have different reasons.
Are there any actions planned that Candles for Assange is going to take part in the next month or so that you'd like to shout out real quick? And then
so we've got this
an action coming up too that you can.
Yeah, I'll talk about.
Yeah. So we've got we haven't got any major protests, but there is a on the map. There is a Socialist Equity Party rally in Wellington on Sunday. There's a few other things. If you look at the map, I've put everything that's done as a sort of white star, and anything that is a new live event as a sun, so you can sort of quite quickly see where the events are in the world. So what I will put in there soon will be these Eternal Flame people who are going to be sitting outside US embassies. So far we've filled up Wednesdays in Berlin. We've filled up Wednesdays in Athens. We have got random in Johannesburg in South Africa, random person going to US embassy and sitting there with a candle. He seems like he's going to make a lot of noise, though. He says, he warned me. Then we've got Mexico once a month. And then we've got Canberra every fortnight, and we've got Sydney every fortnight. So we already have 4 continents going quite well and filling up those US embassies. So that's just going to be weekly. And what we're trying to do is make a small amount of effort for a small number of people, have the maximum effect visually. And I think people sitting on chairs, the fact that there may be 6 next week in Berlin and there's already 2 from one day, from one person, then it became 2, I think that we're going to have a very powerful visual eventually where we have these people sitting on chairs with candles staring at the US embassy, and every week hopefully there's going to be more people with more chairs. That's the idea. So that one's going on at the moment, and then we've got a plan for 11th of October. I don't want to say what it is because I'm not sure it's going to work yet, but it is going to be a 5-eye at least simultaneous action if I can pull it off. That's 11th of October because it's the 6-month anniversary of Assange's arrest in London, and I thought that a simultaneous action at that exact time would be fantastic. The benefit of 10:30 a.m. in London is that it's 7:30 in Toronto a.m., 12:30 in Europe after lunch, 7:30 p.m. in Sydney, and 9:30 p.m. in Wellington. So that's the kind of time that we could have the whole world on the same day doing something exactly the same point of time. And that has lots of potential for live hookups. And I think that can get a lot of people really excited, even though it's a small number of people actually doing things.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's great, and we'll like retweet that out and definitely post it to our site. But Action for Assange, we are so excited because we are going to be heading to Chicago this weekend for the Jimmy Dore show, and we're going to have some events on Saturday. I'm not going to like give all the details on air because I'll be here forever going over them. But starting at 11 a.m., we have an event, and we have one at 3 and at 6 that day. Outside of the Jimmy Dore show, we'll have a table. We're going to have signs. And then also I got wristbands. I just picked them up today that say Action for Assange on them. So please, if you are in the Chicago area, please come out. We have all the details on our website. That's action4assange.com. And then on Sunday, July 14th, we have an event at noon. We have one at 3 p.m. We have all the details of where to meet up and instructions on our website. We have one at 6:30 outside the Jimmy Dore show, and then one at 9 p.m. Again, that is Saturday and Sunday, July 13th and 14th, Chicago. So please come out. It's going to be really exciting. And I think we really need to spread this message all across the country and in all parts of the world, of course. But definitely,
If people have got global protests on, I used to find a method to try and get my, 1,700 friends on Facebook to find out where they are. And I used to go into my hometown or my current city, and I used to change it to whatever city. And then I go back to my friends, and I was able to do a search and find, like, for instance, all my friends in Chicago. Boom, I've got it.
That's smart.
I just did this yesterday, again, to try and do it for some other events that were going on. And it didn't work. Just didn't work. It's just completely been removed as a thing. So if anyone knows a method of being able to find out geographically where your friends are based, I would really like to know.
Yeah, that's a good point. That helps for organizing.
Yeah, and I think if I could encourage those Candles for Assange 62 cities in 62 places to do the same thing, we have a multi-pronged attack, to try and get word out. Sorry, I'm a bit coughing. So we have, much more multi-pronged attack and benefits. And I think we've all got like big followings of potential people that might be in cities that we can activate if we can find a way of doing that, because they've taken away my really handy method. So if anyone's techie and has an idea, I'd love to hear about how to do that.
Absolutely.
I probably better go. Off unless you've got any other questions. I feel guilty. The kids are like packing the car.
No, don't feel guilty. We really appreciate you coming on.
It's a pleasure anytime.
Absolutely, and all that you're doing is wonderful, and I think it's just going to continue to grow and be extremely successful. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And when we get our vigils going, of course, you are always welcome to join us. Absolutely.
I'd love to.
Just let us know.
And
Excellent.
We'll work out the time zones eventually.
We will. We'll get it figured out. We'll become pros at that. It gets
this
tricky,
is a good time for me.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Steve?
Thank you so much for hanging out, Alex. I really appreciate it. And one more time, Candles for Assange, Alex Hills on YouTube. If you are inclined to participate in one of these events, please do so, and please follow Alex on Twitter to find out when these events are going to take place.
Yeah, and we'll also promote other people's events whenever we can, as much as possible. And I'll get that map out and updated as soon as people send me any information. I'll put it on there, and hopefully it will just keep on looking better and better as I get more systems going.
Excellent. Alex Hills, thank you again.
All right, then. Cheers. Do I need to get off this, or should I just leave it in here and you guys can carry on?
Oh, you just close it out, hang up, X out, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you guys. Thank you so much. Love this collaboration. Let's keep going.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.
Alex Hills. Rad. All right. So I am now getting flooded with like people in my house and my phone going off. I have a meeting, so we may as well wrap it. If there's anything you want to close with, please do so. And remember, folks, that you're watching right now, the next time that this happens, this will be on the Action for Assange YouTube channel.
Yeah, I know it's a little confusing. Again, I want to thank you, Steve, for letting me use this. I know we were quite confused at first, but Alex was a really great guest to have on, and thanks for having me on as well. And Action for Assange, we will be on this evening. We'll have our link on Twitter. You could follow us at action_4Assange. And we'll have, again, Christy Doff on. She will be talking about the Unity4J suspension and the Twitter blackout, I guess, and just more about Assange and WikiLeaks and current event topics. And of course, Steve, you're always welcome to come on the show and be a regular guest whenever you can.
Kick ass. Thank you so much, Taylor.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you guys for joining in with us. This has been Slow News Day. I'm Steve Boykinen. Good luck to us all.